Hey folks, another late night story, The Shadow Boss, Part 2. A few years later, I had graduated from a local massage school and was still contracting for various hospitals in the area. I really liked working on people. It's incredibly easy to get to know someone once you have hands on them, as weird as that sounds. I guess if you're in the psychic or energy field of things, it might make a little bit more sense. Nonetheless, a lot of people walked out different, and a lot of beautiful stories were made that I got to keep. It was a place of giving back and kept a good balance in my life. So after a while, I started doing mobile massage, here and there when my back permitted. Those tables of 45 pounds alone, plus all the supplies like sheets, lotion, and tools. Take my word for it, and spend the coins on a nice lightweight table. Well, one night me and the kiddo hop in the truck and we drive out to Denton because my area is just blah. And it's really just full of old people everywhere. Not exactly something I wanted on a Friday night. So we end up at the ice cream shop downtown Denton and we meet this person there who's awkwardly sitting at the table just like us. I wasn't having any luck anyways, so why not, right? A strong intuitive feeling arose and I struck up a conversation between us. This person had many health issues, and you could tell just from glancing. My gut was telling me this was the case, and there was a lot of work to be done. At one point, EVPs called me the exorcist. More on that later. So we worked out a deal, and I ended up coming back like 2 weeks later for a session. It was a fairly large house, 2-story, a garage, and a big front yard, the usual. She lived with an old lady who I never met. As I walked in the house, clutter was everywhere. This is a sign of chaos right here. Always pick up your clutter. You'll be surprised how much the frequency picks up of a house when it's clean. As I made my way in about 15 feet or so in the house, I started seeing them. Yet these were a little bit different. The walls, in a psychic sense, looked like termite damage. Think big channels dug out of the wall as they slithered and flew past them. So many I couldn't count. The house was infested. It's the only word I could think of, infested. The worst I've ever seen to this date of writing this. All were black shadows. They were all the same. The garage felt like it had a hole in it, like a mine shaft where they all crawled out from. Hundreds of them. Many, many portals were littered throughout the house. Places where things came and went through. To be honest, I was already becoming overwhelmed, as this was the first time I've ever encountered something in this nature, but I held my ground. We made our way through the house to the upstairs portion where her room was, and I just kept thinking, could it get any worse? Shortly after we started, I came out and just asked about them, because one of them was in the corner of the room just watching me work. It would pace between the bathroom and the mirror, directly in front of where we were working. Apparently she could see them, and she already knew about them. As when she would leave the house, she could look in a rearview mirror and see one or two peeking around neighboring cars, waiting for her to come and go. Long story short, halfway through the session, I stepped out of the room as I told her to flip over. And as I waited on the stairwell for those few minutes, I noticed something stirring at the bottom of the stairs. An uneasy feeling. The stairs made a few turns, so I couldn't see the bottom exactly. It slithered up fast like a king cobra, rising up to my face. I could see the darkening as it came up. The only light shining through the door vent from the room actually stopped coming through and stopped right there at the door. The light no longer shined on the floor anymore. It challenged me, but in a semi-respectful way. Maybe I gained a reputation or something? The EVPs did call me the Exorcist for a long time. He wanted to know why I was there, and I wanted to know who it was. A standoff for which seemed like eternity was probably only 2 minutes in real time. I don't recall much of that interaction because it was short and my gaze was so fixed. I ended up giving her an extra hour on top of the 2 she paid for, with some tips on cleaning up her spaces mentally and physically. But they had her pretty tightly gripped as she hesitated with every tip that I gave her. I'm not sure if she ever got better after that, as I really didn't want to go back or check up. I think I'll just leave this one to rest, not to draw them back into my world. Although I do think I still have her on my Facebook. One last thing I do remember that stood out was the room adjacent to hers upstairs, which would be the attic that was converted. It was full of dead people, like a commune or something. There had to be 20 people living in there. I do remember them just staring at me like, get out. The end.